right, you know what? While everybody's getting settled, let's just get started because I am so excited to have the CEO and founder of Celonis here with us today. So very big deal. We're going to get a little nerdy here. Process mining and what Celonis is doing in this space, I think, is quite revolutionary and really compelling. So we're looking forward to the next half hour, and hopefully we'll have some time for you guys to ask questions as well. So maybe for those of for the audience that aren't as familiar with Celonis, Alex, maybe you could give us a bit of a high-level overview of the company and where you stand today.
Fantastic. First of all, Sarah, thank you so much for having me. It's a
Thank
pleasure.
you.
Thank you, Jamie, for hosting this great event and inviting us all. Big round of applause. And just to get a little survey, who's heard of Celonis? Be honest. Okay, so I would say, and who heard of process mining? Anybody? You know, as long as nobody has heard of process mining and has not heard of Celonis, I'm happy. You know? So what we do is effectively think of everything a company does. We help them do it with higher efficiency and ultimately with better performance. And the way we do that is that we look at these companies as a collection of interacting business processes, right? Like every company has business processes, selling things, shipping things, invoicing things, paying things. And obviously these processes run in different systems. They run in SAP and Salesforce and Oracle and all these other systems. And usually it's a combination, it's like a web of these different systems, right? You don't just use one system. I haven't found any larger company that just uses one system. They always use many, many systems. And what Celonis is really good at is layering on top of these systems and using process mining, first of all, giving people a data-driven understanding of what's going on. Like how are these processes are running, where things are not optimized, where you have like a delta between what you really want and what's really happening, right? And pointing out a lot of opportunities to improve. And then we also help you seize these opportunities by putting data and intelligence at the heart of how you execute these processes day to day. And we believe it's a huge opportunity. You know, I was just on the phone earlier this week with a customer, a big pharma company here in the US. They told me, just casually, they told me like, last year we saved over $200 million using Celonis, just in finance, right? So the opportunity to create value is huge. And we work with many of the biggest companies in the world here in the US, over in Europe, and that's what we do.
Phenomenal. So I think what would be really interesting to understand a little bit more, how would we use the product? Do you deploy Celonis once and kind of look at your operational inefficiencies, or do you continuously run it in your environment so that you're always optimizing your performance?
No, you need to constantly use it, right?
Okay.
It's a real-time technology that always gives you insight into, and even actions things, automates things. So we started just with process mining, which is just the insight piece. But we evolved in what we call an execution management system, which doesn't just give you the insight on what you can optimize, but actually helps you optimize it. Right, ongoing signals, alerts, actions, and really becomes part of the fabric of how you run your company.
Okay.
So,
All right, that makes sense. So you're really going to want to consistently keep it operating in your environment, and that will enable you to have these kind of incredible cost savings.
Yes.
So maybe just take a step back. I think your journey to where you are at Celonis, and even Celonis's journey, is a really compelling one. Could you maybe take a minute and share a little bit about your background with the crowd who maybe aren't as familiar?
Yeah, so I have a very boring CV because I only ever had one job, which is the job I currently have, which is Celonis. So the way we got started is we got started in college over in Germany at the Technical University of Munich. And I was studying math, and my two co-founders were computer scientists. And we needed to make some money on the side. I had actually just come off Erasmus exchange semester, 6 months in Paris, and I was very broke. So we needed to find a way to make money, so we started freelancing for, doing IT freelancing stuff together. And one of our customers said, hey, we would really like you to take a look at our IT service operation and optimize it. And then we learned about process mining, right? We did some research and we learned about process mining, which we didn't invent. It was invented by a professor in the Netherlands over 10 years before we started, but nobody paid attention to it. And we thought, hey, well, I mean, that's such a horizontal opportunity, right? So many things that ultimately business processes. And if there's a new data technology, a new set of algorithms that helps us understand these processes in an automated way, as opposed to calling in a consulting company to do like a manual assessment of your processes, that could be a huge market. So we kind of got lucky and stumbled over it, and then in college doing some freelancing work, and then we said, hey, this could be really interesting, and we said, hey, we're just going to focus on this full time.
I fully empathize because my semester abroad and the credit card bill my father gave me upon graduation is exactly how I landed at Goldman Sachs. So I very much understand. So could you talk to us a little bit about the vision of the company and becoming a part of this more operationally efficient enterprise where we see so many companies heading? Where does Celonis fit in?
Yeah, I think of Celonis as doing the process piece of that, right? So you can use data for many things, right? To optimize your customer segmentation, or figure out which product to build next. What Celonis really helps you with is substantially optimize the performance of your business processes. And we're investing a lot in product innovation. We are 12 years in, but we're now 3,000 people around the world. We're growing very, very fast, right? North of 50% year over year, and we're just getting started, really, right? Like we have such a huge opportunity, and we really think that that we can become the next generation platform that is fueled by intelligence, that drives and orchestrates business processes across the enterprise, putting data and intelligence at the heart of how these processes get done. And obviously, I can talk a lot more about that, but that's in essence what we're thriving towards, and we are evolving our capabilities around multiple vectors to get there.
Wonderful. Very helpful. So I'd love to talk a little bit about the classic software land and expand with your customers. Where do you typically land with your clients, and what does the expansion process of a Celonis deployment look like?
Yes. So usually we land in a very targeted fashion, right? So we can solve a lot of problems in a company, but we usually try to focus on either something in finance or something in the supply chain. It depends a little bit on the industry, but in a bank it would be something around trade processing. But per industry, we would be pretty precise at saying, hey, this is a good point to get started. And then we expand, and our biggest customers are north of $10 million a year in terms of ARR, and they keep expanding. So our net retention has always served us really, really well in terms of expanding the customers. And I don't think there's a single customer that is fully penetrated, right?
Really?
No, because you have so many processes, right? You can go into finance, supply chain, front office. You can go into, in the manufacturing piece. The pharma customer I mentioned earlier, they're now going into clinical trials and how to optimize those processes. I mean, it is a really, really horizontal concept. Obviously, we try to remain very focused in our go-to-market approach in terms of landing logos, right? Because you need an easy play to land logos, very clear play. But then as you expand, the possibilities are endless.
Very, very interesting. With all of those areas that you're able to address, one of the ways we're always thinking about companies is their total addressable market. Where do you fit in? How big is the area you're looking at? How do you even begin to think about that with Celonis, given that you're really operating across applications and across infrastructure, really looking at the whole enterprise?
Yeah. So the way we think about our addressable market is, what are the, so there's two ways to look at it. One way is you can just look at our current ARR per customer, per segment, and just extrapolate it out. But I don't think you would get a very accurate estimation of the total addressable market because really we are growing so fast within those customers. I think the other way to look at it is just take a conservative view on the kind of value we can drive per domain, like finance and supply chain, for our customers and our take rate of that value. And no matter how you look at, you're probably over 60 billion in terms of TAM.
Wow.
So I think it's a huge market that we serve. It's also a market that we are creating, right? It's not that we are one of these lift and shift plays where we say, hey, you know what CRM is, or you know what I know ERP is, so we just do it in the cloud, or we have found a new way to do it. We are really building a whole new industry, and that's super exciting. And I think it's just getting started.
So I think what's really helpful for me, and probably I think for members of the audience too, would be if you could give us a couple examples of clients that are, you don't have to share the logos or anything, but maybe you could give us some understanding of a couple of live instances of Celonis, or maybe clients where you're seeing them doing really compelling things with your product.
Yeah, I mean, for example, there's some of our clients that even mention us in the earnings calls, which is great because then we can talk about it. Like, for example, British Petroleum mentioned in one of their quarterly earnings calls that they saved over $800 million with Celonis just in procurement. Okay, that's just one area in the business. And they work with us in over 20 different areas, right? So you just get a sense for the type of value we can drive for these large organizations. One story that I always love to share is, I can't share the logo in that case, but just to give you an idea on how important these process issues are, we have a customer in also a very big company, and they saved over $100 million just in one process and one use case. And the use case was that they figured out that they are paying certain invoices twice. Okay, so they get the invoice through different channels, and they have different ERP systems, and they have a shared service center somewhere in Asia, and the invoice comes in 2 times for some reason, right? And slightly different data. Yes. And it makes its way to the system twice. And because they process so much, right, that was a $100 million plus opportunity. We productized that, and now we've built this knowledge layer that always looks for things that we already know about within the next customer, and that's been a use case that's been really successful for I would say most of our customers that have used that have found pretty substantial value. Not all of them are over 100 million of duplicates, but that's just another example. But we help J&J substantially accelerate the lead times for critical pharma products that they do in terms of manufacturing and supply chain. We helped Uber improve free cash flow and optimize customer service. I mean, we had so many companies that you'd be familiar with around the world. You're getting substantial step changes in performance. And what I love about what we do is that the value is so tangible. You have a lot of technology where you sell these big projects to customers, and in some cases they have to do these big migrations, right? Like,
yeah.
I love to talk to CIOs about these migrations. It's like, hey, you're migrating to this new system, you're spending $500 million. What are you getting out of it, right? And the answer is mostly, or very often, it's just I don't know. While with Celonis, you're going to be a few months in, and you can save millions of dollars. You're going to be a year, and you can save tens of millions. You're going to be a couple of years in, you can save hundreds of millions, and you can prove it because you measure the process before and after. So I think that our ability to demonstrate and measure the value that we drive for our customers is unmatched in the enterprise. I don't know that there's
an immediate ROI.
There's an immediate ROI, and it's measurable down to the cent. And that's extremely exciting, especially these days, right? What I talk about to our customers these days, I speak a lot to customers, and one of the things I talk about when I talk to the CEO or CFO is, how do we make sure that we impact this year's budget? How do we make sure that before you put out the annual report for the year, you might not mention it, but you know that Celonis shows up in those numbers, even though you haven't even started yet, right? And I don't think, and we can really move the needle if companies move fast, and that's a lot of the conversations we have these days, because everybody's under pressure to optimize with inflation, with supply chain issues, all the issues you're well familiar with.
Absolutely. So thinking about that, I think, with the environment being what it is and the macro being as difficult as it's been, I'd love to hear how you think about growing Celonis and how you think about strategizing really what your focus areas are going to be over the next several years. Where do you want to deploy assets? Where do you think about maybe even pulling back if you do? Would be great to know.
Well, that's there's multiple pieces there. Generally, our focus is very simple and has been very consistent all the way since we started, right? The benefit of starting very young, right? There's a lot of downsides. You don't know much and things like that, but the benefit of that is you have a really long-term perspective, right? So we are not in this for the next 2 years for the next of 5 years. We have a long-term perspective on both our opportunity and the way we want to evolve the company. And what we really are focused on is, on the one hand side, innovation, right? How can we make sure that we keep building an innovation machine? I mean, there's no great technology company that hasn't been an innovation machine. So we are continuing to invest in research and development. As it relates to our go-to-market, we've always placed a big emphasis on being efficient. And when we started, nobody wanted to invest in the company for the first few years, so we had to bootstrap. So even though I don't think many startups grew up with sort of tight balance sheets, right? Like we, in the very early days, for the first 5 years, we had an extremely tight balance sheet. Right? We started with $15,000 and we bootstrapped the company for the first 5 years. So I think what everybody now is realizing is how that we don't just focus on growth, but we also focus on the productivity and the investment we need to accomplish that growth. It's been always important to us, but I think it's getting more front and center. So we are looking at, hey, how can we make sure that we grow in a productive way? Part of that is focusing, right? Focusing on the right markets. So we're very focused on North America and our key markets in Europe and Japan, right? We don't need to go into 20 different countries. Most of the software in the world is sold in those markets. So we try to have a clear focus in terms of the markets we penetrate, the industries, the customer base. We constantly scrutinize how efficient and fast that growth is in the different segments. And then the final focus is we are enormously focused on customer value, right? And we don't call it customer success. We call it customer value. I don't care, if someone comes to a meeting with me and says this customer is really happy, I'm like, how much value have they gotten, right? It's great that they're happy. I want all of our customers to be happy, but even more importantly, I want them to have a huge ROI from the investment, because we can measure it. We are so focused on that. So we are focused on product and innovation, the right kind of growth, right? Rapid growth, but doing it in a productive way, and then customer value.
And so do you have a partner ecosystem that you lean on or that plays into your go-to-market?
Of course, yeah. So I still remember our first newspaper article. This was many years ago in Germany. There was this reporter that wrote this article, which was something like, "Here's a company that replaces McKinsey." Okay, that's how they explained Celonis, which is not true for many reasons, right? We're a technology company, not a consulting company. But as I just said, you can accomplish the kind of transparency that you need much faster. And I was really worried. We're a super small company. I was like worried that all these consultants would get mad at us because of this article, right? Because they never heard of Celonis. And then the opposite happened. All of our phones rang, and McKinsey called, and all the big consulting companies called, because it caught their attention. Right? It was a provocative statement, and we have great relationships with many of the leading technology consulting, business consulting, management consulting, business process outsourcing companies in the world. I just saw Sanjay from Genpact here as an example. They have been a great partner of us for many years. The Accenture, KPMG, EY. I mean, we have great partnerships there with the system integrator and consultant community, and they use our products to accelerate what they're doing. They implement our products. They're building assets and applications on top of our platform, and I think increasingly we are also building great relationships with other software companies. So especially smaller software companies that really say, hey, I really want to build assets on top of a platform that already has broad adoption in the enterprise. And because we know so much about business processes, we can serve this data to other software ISVs that can create IP and apps and add value to our customer base. So that's a more emerging motion. But the ecosystem is a big factor of our growth so far, and I think an even bigger factor of our growth going forward.
Excellent, wonderful. Maybe taking a step back a little bit higher level about the company. there's a couple, maybe two things I want to ask you about on that front. The first is what you view the mission of the company to be and your mission statement. And the second thing is, you have a great, and I actually encourage everybody to take a look at this. The sustainability message on your webpage is really compelling, and it's really quite well done. And I'd love to hear how Celonis plays into sustainability as well. So the mission of the company and where this sort of really thoughtful sustainability approach came from.
So maybe let me start with the second and then go to the first. But when we're not purely in the business because for economic reasons. Obviously, we want to do great for our shareholders and build a really successful company and continue to do that. But we also want to have a broader impact on the world around us. And I think that we don't want to manufacture that. Like, we don't want to say, hey, we're doing this charity, and all that stuff is great, but we want to make sure that that's connected to the core of what we do. And what is the benefit of making processes better? Right? You really have to start with that question. Well, there's economic benefit for our customers in terms of the performance that they can achieve, but there's also huge amounts of benefit for sustainability, right? Because just to give you a few data points, a third of the food that's produced in the world is wasted. If food waste was a country, it would be the third largest carbon emitter in the world. Well, now probably intuitively you think that this food is wasted because of the consumer, right? Because, who isn't guilty of, buying a lot of things and then maybe not using everything, right? That's only 20%. 80% is wasted in the supply chain, in the processes before the food even reaches the consumer. Nobody benefits from that, right? Producers don't benefit, distributors, nobody benefits. It's pure waste. Right? Well, guess who works with many of the leading food and beverages companies in the world on optimizing their processes, right? 25% of containers are shipped empty.
Wow.
Right? So the cost of waste, not just economic, but also carbon cost of waste is tremendous. Like, it's a hugely underrated opportunity, and we are tackling it with substantial product investment. And obviously, we're also paying a lot of attention to our own carbon footprint, but that's minor, right? That's more of a, to set the right example. But we really invested a lot in sustainability products, being able to translate process data into emissions, so that you can understand, if I optimize this process, if I, reduce the number of truckloads I have, how much is that actually going to impact my emissions? And we see tremendous demand from our customers for that. And I think our team gets a huge amount of purpose from that as well. Yeah. Because making processes better is a big deal to help the economy, help our customers, and also help the planet.
Wonderful. Let's see. I think we have a couple of minutes left. I'd love to see if there's any questions from the audience. Otherwise, I will keep going. Any questions from? Okay, wonderful. Hi.
Okay, so how is the venture landscape different between Europe and North America? So I think, I get this question all the time, where it's like, why don't more companies from Europe kind of make it, right? And create durable businesses? And why do a lot of founders come to the US to create durable businesses? Yeah. Why does nobody do it in Europe? And I think the funding environment, the venture environment, is a huge reason for that. So when we started out, we had these big customers. Our second customer was Siemens. Right? They paid hundreds of thousands of dollars from the get-go, right, to get started now with our technology. There was huge customer proof points, and I think deep technological innovation. Still, nobody wanted to fund us. There was very few venture funds in Germany. Most of them were extremely consumer-focused, consumer internet-focused, not B2B software-focused. Some of them said, I don't believe that, three people in their early 20s can build an enterprise software company. We've never seen that before. So and then we just decided to bootstrap. And we only really started raising venture money once we expanded to the US, and we attracted some US London-based venture funds. So I think that was the state 12 years ago. I think a lot has changed. I think Celonis today would get funded much more easily locally, but it's still nowhere near the maturity of the US. And I think that's the number one reason why we don't see more companies out of Europe sort of thriving around the globe.
And do you think it matters where you are located physically within the US?
Oh, that's an interesting question. I think that also changed a lot, right? So I think that it used to be all around Silicon Valley, and I think Silicon Valley continues to be a huge hub for innovation. But I think with COVID teaching us more about remote work and also the venture ecosystem broadening, I think that we have our US headquarters in New York, and that's been great for us. So I don't think it's all Silicon Valley anymore. But I also, by the way, don't believe that's a zero-sum game, right? Silicon Valley doesn't have to lose for Austin or New York or
No, I mean,
Denver to win.
No, it's great to see Boston and New York, and we want to see more growth everywhere. Yes.
Well, it's a super impressive story. Congratulations. I love your focus on customer value. Actually, when we created around $100 million customer value, how much is in it for Celonis?
Yeah, so that's a really good question. So the question, I'm not sure everybody heard it, is, it's great that we create so much customer value, but what's in it for you, right? Like if you create 100 million, what's your take rate? So that's where we're evolving our business model as we become more, as we have more predictive capability and is saying, hey, I know that you're going to be able to save this much money using this application. We can tie our pricing more closely to that. So today I wouldn't say, if one company saves $100 million in one use case, they use it across maybe 100 use cases and 20 processes, right? I'm sure not everyone is 100 million, but they're probably saving over $1 billion a year, and our take rate is very, very small, right? Like again, we have many $1 million plus AR relationships and a few $10 million plus, but still it's a small take rate compared to the value. But I think we will get better at that over time as our platform matures.
Wonderful. Yes. Mike's coming.
Hey, thank you. I wanted to ask, when you're going through the process mining architecture and you're working with your customers and identifying processes, that can be a rather abstract concept to present potentially to new customers. So I'd love to understand, what is that moment when it clicks with your customers that you can demonstrate tangible value, or rather, how do you convince companies not just model and identify costs, but to really implement broad and sweeping changes that can deliver those cost savings?
I mean, my view on that is very simple. I think that the faster you can get to a real use case, the better. So you focus on a domain like finance and accounts payable, which I just mentioned a couple of times, right? And you have very tangible demonstrations and use cases in those domains, or you work with our partner ecosystem, right? Our partner ecosystem is a huge part of that as well, because as Genpact or KPMG or whoever it is already knows what are the issues within this customer, and then we have a land and expand motion, so we make it really easy for the customer to save the first dollar, and then usually it spreads quickly, right? But getting to this initial proof is the key thing that you have to bridge and do it as quickly as possible.
All right, well, we're out of time. I'd like to say thank you so much, Alex, for joining us. It's been an absolute pleasure. Thank you, Jamie, for
Thank you so much.